This is Election Brief with me, Carlos Caloni. Within the next 30 minutes, we have the latest update from the political scene. We are live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 125, all social media handles, and around the world on myjoyonline.com. Election headquarters is brought to you by the Petrosol, your clean fuel in full quantity, Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, CIMA, and the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, together as the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants and German Ozone Medical Center, Alternative Therapy, Dental Wellness and Beauty. Election headquarters for an informed electorate. We are grateful for your time. Now, the flag bearer of the governing New Patriotic Party, the NPP, Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, is reiterating the intention of his government to align port duties and charges with that of Togo's free port system. According to him, the exchange rate will be fixed over a period to help with importation of goods into the country. He gave this assurance during a meeting with key players in the pharmaceutical industry. This engagement is part of his bold solution for the future initiative, which seeks to collect views from key stakeholders to influence the manifesto direction of the party going into the general elections.
You know, we are going to, and I've already announced this for the spare parts, and we are going to have a situation where we have the exchange rate fairly fixed over a period. So that the issue of changes in duty, it doesn't help us. Because you see, why are prices in the markets always increasing? They're always increasing because people are anticipating the exchange rate will always depreciate. So you have to price forward based on your anticipated depreciation. That doesn't help us. It's inflationary. And so we are going to change the duty structure and go into more of a flat specific duty. Like I said, for the spare parts, if you have a 40-foot container, you know this is how much in cedis you are paying. If you have a 20-foot container, this is how much in cedis you are paying. So you take the exchange rate out of the matter, and then you deal with that. So this is what we are doing. We are going to also make sure our duties in our ports by policy cannot be higher than in Lomé. By policy, they cannot be higher. That's our competitive. And right now, there is a lot of diversion of containers to Lomé because ours are higher. In fact, the simplest way to stop the smuggling is to equalize the duties or become lower than Lomé. And that's what we are going to do.
Now, let's bring in an economist into this discussion. We'll be joined by Zoom by Dr. Edo Sarkodie. He is a lecturer at the Department of Economics at the University of Ghana. Doc, it's great having you. Share with us, what implications will this policy have on the economy, as being touted by the Vice President?
Yeah, if you have been listening to Dr. Bawumia, of course, especially from his vision statement at UPSA, you realize that one of his pillars in the vision is private sector development. He strongly believes in the development of the private sector because he agrees or he knows the role the private sector will play in the economic development, economic growth and development of the country, especially when we know the private sector employs more than 80% of the labor force in the country. And so if you want to develop the private sector, there are so many angles. And one of the areas that he has talked about today is to make sure that the direct traffic to the Ghana ports. Everybody knows now that we have been competing with our neighboring countries, especially that of Togo. If you also recall, there was an attempt made in 2019 or so where they wanted to provide a 50% discount on the benchmark values, which did not yield the needed results as at that time. And so it is really on the mind of Dr. Bawumia to make sure that we direct traffic to Ghana ports and make Ghana competitive Also, most especially when Ghana is the host of the African Continental Free Trade Secretariat. And so you want to make sure that as much as possible, you make Ghana competitive by lowering the duties and making sure that you direct traffic to us when there's increase in traffic. Even if the duty is 10, if the duty is 15 and you have 600, and that's about, you have 60, that's about 900. But if you reduce the duty to, say, 10 from 15, and then you get about 1,000 containers, that's about a revenue of 1,000. So you can actually get more revenue by lowering the duty if you increase the volume of containers at the ports. So you can get more revenue by lowering the duty, and also to make sure that most of the imports that we need in the country to grow the economy, most of the raw materials and even the intermediate goods are imported from other countries. So once you direct traffic, you get revenue. First of all, you may get an increase in revenue for government to perform its duties, and secondly, you will get all the required raw materials and then intermediate imports to propel economic growth in the country. So I think it's a good thing, and consistently Dr. Bawumia has been touting the development of the private sector, and now he's tackling the port issue. Remember that he is known to be the panacea of the paperless duties or paperless operations at the ports. So it is a good thing, and I'm sure that if we are able to implement this and they are successful, we will have more traffic at the ports, more revenue, more growth, and then maybe more employment for the teeming youth of the country.
All right, so looking at our fiscal status, now that the possibility of a policy like this is going to be implemented in the next 1 or 2 years, is this something that is really feasible, even though you've outlined key result that we can get from it? Is it a feasible policy?
It is feasible to achieve. Of course, an attempt has already been made in 2019 with the 50% discount. Perhaps the success story wasn't the best, and I'm sure that they might have done their homework well to look at all other factors that would account for this expected results that they want to achieve with the reduction of their duties. So it is feasible. We can do it. We have no option. Ghana has no option than to be competitive from in terms of the ports. Maybe there's a fear of a loss in revenue, but I've already made a point that it is even more, it's possible to get more revenue by lowering your duties when there is an increase in traffic at the port. Even in events that the contingency to make sure that they're making more revenue to make the duty. So it made a point that we have no option than to be competitive. Because now, as we speak, all the traffic is being directed at Lome, and we can't, as a country, and keep watching these developments. We have to do something as a country.
All right, Doc. But
I think that he's taking the bold step.
Let me also find out from you. Under the IMF program, Ghana needs a lot of revenue, even considering our current economic situation in the country. Now, the vice president is promising to, reduce import charges and all these. How do you strike a balance between the fact that we need the revenue and the fact that we need to cut revenue somewhere just to bring in the containers into the country?
Well, first of all, I am of the firm belief that these are campaign promises. And these are vision statements of Dr. Bawumia, and we have also heard Mr. Mahama make a similar call in terms of giving tax incentives for businessmen and women. So this may be something to be achieved in the next 4 years between 2025 and 2029. As at that time, I'm sure we might have been out of the IMF program. But even now, if by 2025, 2026, they still want to implement this, I don't think the IMF will restrict any leader from implementing such a policy. The IMF have stopped dictating specifically what you must do. They now recommend. So if they have recommended an increase in revenue or an increase in tax revenue, they are not telling you specifically what tax you must introduce. So if as a country or as a policy maker, you believe that by lowering the duties and by giving certain incentives in a certain specific aspect or a specific area of the economy, you will get more revenue or you get growth. By also going to another area, you can go into another area, like I've mentioned, the contingency plan. So even if there's a loss in revenue, you must have a backup plan to raise the needed revenue. So I'm not sure it should be a problem. They should always have a backup plan. And I've always recommended the extractive sector. Currently, I've been calling for an increase in the royalties from 5% to maybe 10%. That is a good thing. Royalties is raking in as much as the e-levy, according to the budget statement, the fiscal table. So we can go into the extractive sector and get more revenue to make up for the loss in the other sectors of the economy. So I'm not sure it should be a problem.
Okay, so apart from this, before I let you go finally, apart from this, how do we make our port competitive, apart from just reducing the import charges to make us competitive with the Togo port, for instance? Apart from that, what specific strategy can the managers of the economy actually employ to make our port more competitive beyond this?
I think we have already started as a country, digitization. Dr. Bawumia strongly believes in digitization. And I also strongly believe that the whole world is going digital. The global economy is going digital. We must make sure that we make everything paperless, remove the middlemen, which cause so much friction in transactions. And so if we digitize and the digitization process is faster and it's easier than Lome, we may be more competitive. I think the next one has to do with, the bureaucratic processes. I think it's also linked with digitization, but most often than not, you see so many barriers at the port, so many bureaucratic processes. How many days does it take to clear your goods? So your duty may be lower, but if I spend 10 days at your port, I may still want to go to a Lome port where I'll spend maybe 5 days to clear my goods. So these bureaucratic processes must be attended to. So lower duties, digitization, reduction of the bureaucratic processes, all this must go. But most importantly, it is good that the political leaders are meeting with the individual or the active players like the GUTA and other organizations. So because they are on the ground, so we sit in our office and we put the figures together, but they are on the ground. They are directly affected by every policy. So the government must listen to them, listen to GUTA, listen to AGI, listen to their concerns, and address them directly so that in the end, we will have a better Ghana for a better life. All
right, Doc, kindly stay on for us. I've been joined by the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Mustafa Bande, also. Hi, Mustafa. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. So this should be good news. I mean, when the Vice President takes office, he's really going to make our port more competitive. How do you view this proposal?
Well, another lecture and presentation of my first year economic class in the university, where you have a vice president who is the current vice president. And so business owners are losing revenue, losing their capital to high taxes, high cost of trading, and affecting consumers whose income is not able to match the rising cost of living. By so doing, our economy is almost crashed down, but the vice president is looking for a holiday of 9 months. Let everybody go and sleep, lose your capital. The government doesn't care of what you go through. Your business can collapse for all they care. Wait, let's finish election, make Dr. Bawumia a president. Then he comes to implement flat rate. That is a joke of the century, and that is a clear act of lack of seriousness on the part of this government. I think that they have suddenly changed and transformed our governance into comedy. Some jokes. How do we say that a current vice president cannot come out and say, okay, in the midst of the difficulties, we are implementing an IMF program. This is our recovery plan. This is what we are doing. These are clear earmarked policies that we are implementing to ensure that in the meantime or in the medium time, in the short term, in the long time, we are able to recover out of these challenges. But he says that make me a president and this is what I can do. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is fully in charge of the government of President Akufo-Addo. In fact, as it stands now, President Akufo-Addo is just a ceremonial figure. The entire powers of this government has been handed over to Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. There have even been contemplations that the president may leave so that the vice president will take over into the election. Right. Is he saying that he's not in charge of his office as vice president? We should get serious. And you know that every single tax that they have imposed, either on the ports or at the airports, that has been collateralized against loans that they have taken. So it is not realistic to say that you can easily overhaul the entire process. It has to take a gradualist approach for us to be able to discharge the backlog of burdens that we have when it comes to how taxes have been imposed and how we make sure that we take those taxes out of services that government renders. So anybody who tells you that he has the power to run anything that is far away from what we have currently, it's a lie. It cannot be implemented. And this is not a time we should be making such political pronouncements, particularly from people who have responsibilities to solve the problem as we are. Today, as we speak, are they not charging COVID levies at the port? Do we still have COVID? Why can't they take out that levy?
So Mustafa Gbande there, I think we're having some challenges with his connection, but we'll still get him. We're just looking at what the vice president has been saying, that if given the nod, he would make Ghana sport more competitive and apply some policies similar to what we have in Togo. But Mr. Mustafa Gbande, kindly land on the point you actually making earlier.
I'm saying that they are currently charging COVID levy at the ports. The vice president is the head of the economic management team. Why can't they say that, okay, if we have any briefing space, let's take out that component so that importers can brief? Is it not recently they even added another levy at the airport for scanning of bags, $20? I mean, so when you come and talk as if the complaints that Ghanaians or the challenges Ghanaians face are not realistic and that we can freeze that until a certain period where people will lose their capitals, people will lose their businesses, companies would have collapsed, the country would have lost factories because they cannot bear the cost of doing business. And at what time would you come and implement all of this? When you are clearly the vice president in the seat, let Dr. Bawumia tomorrow announce flat rates for the port. Let him announce it tomorrow. We dare him. If he really thinks he should be taken serious in this country, he should announce tomorro these policies he's talking about. Let him convince his boss, President Akufo-Addo, and announce to Ghanaians that on this basis, these are the reforms that they are implementing to ensure that it brings relief to Ghanaians. And let's stop these rhetorics and these gimmicks and these jokes of politics.
All right, Mustafa, but before I let you go, you know that our ports need to be competitive. As we speak, data shows that we're actually losing cargo to our neighboring countries. You want to come into office next year. What would you have done differently to make our port more competitive?
President Mahama have been engaging importers and stakeholders. I believe that the experts in this area will speak to the policies of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama when it comes to how he's going to handle the ports to relieve businesses of the stress they are going through. But our ports need to be competitive, I agree. Togo has been practicing free ports for some time now. And so how come people now take their goods to Togo? It is because the port charges have increased and increased and increased and increased. In the last 7 years, if you look at the number of times they have increased port charges, it has been so astronomical. And this was the same vice president who was in charge. And so I'm just saying that the NDC will come out with our policy framework in terms of how to, revolutionize the economy and bring it on track. But in the meantime, let the driver and the mate do something strategic, do something realistic. Be honest for once and say that the policies I'm talking about, I'm willing to implement them now. Let Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia hold another lecture and implement that policy. Today, they have a new finance minister who I believe is competent than the other one. If the vice president is still the head of economic management team, let them announce so that collapsing businesses can be salvaged, so that the overbearing cost of living as a result of high cost of importation can be reduced. Why are we talking about 8 clear months for him to come and be president to do what?
Thank you.
NDC will come out with a policy on this matter.
Thank you so much. Mustafa Gbande is the Deputy General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress. We are grateful for your time. But Doc, we still have you on the line. Now, Mustafa believes this is just a political gimmick. It's not something that is actually going to be implemented. And so he's daring the vice president to implement it now. Is this something that he can do now? Hello, Doc. Kindly unmute so we can hear you. Hello, Doc. We seem to be having some challenges connecting to Doc on this issue. Doc, I was asking, having listened to Mustafa Gbande.
I think you should have written. Yes, hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Kindly proceed.
I can hear you.
Kindly proceed, Doc.
Okay. I think Mustafa has raised legitimate concern, but I'm speaking, but I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you, Doc. Kindly proceed.
I've said that Mustafa has raised a legitimate concern, and to bring a balanced discussion, you should have invited an MPP rep to also put more light on Dr. Bawumia's vision. But from what I said, I think that the government should give a signal of what Dr. Bawumia can do in 2025 if he wins the election, and that's a legitimate call. So I want to, because Guta, for example, if you listen, he has been talking about the flat rates for a long time. So if government can do something about it, then they should start the process now, so that, they'll be given hope that when Dr. Bawumia wins and implement that. But so they should send a good signal and start the process now to give a good signal.
All right. Thank you so much.
Can you hear me still?
Doc, thank you so much. I think the point is well made there. We're so grateful for your time. Now, moving on, independent presidential aspirant George Chonberma says he is the only independent candidate that will help break the duopoly of NPP and NDC in the governance of the country. Speaking at the Trade Union Congress to present his vision to the business community, Mr. Chonberma said he will form an all-inclusive government which will assemble the best brains from all walks of life, irrespective of their political affiliation. With the slogan, Breaking the Two, Chonberma believes he is the right man to move Ghana forward.
On the 29th of January of this year, I launched my presidential bid. My campaign slogan, as you all know by now, is Breaking the Two. And Breaking the Two, yes, that is my campaign slogan. I agree with you wholeheartedly when you say in the very first page of your manifesto that, and I quote, "The economy is too important to be left in the hands of politicians. We should all get involved in the management of the economy and our national resources," unquote. I say I agree with you because it is my belief that a nation is developed by all its people and not by a section or a few. Not by a political movement or or a political party or a political force. Unfortunately, my brothers and sisters, that is what has happened. And as you say on page IV of your manifesto, the country has reached a dangerous point of polarization where nearly every discourse is conducted strictly along party and ethnic lines. As you have also stated on page II of your manifesto, that the Union still believes very strongly that Ghana can build an economy and a society that works for each and every Ghanaian. So let us build it. I believe saying to be very true. But the question is, how do we build this Ghana that we work for each and every Ghanaian? Obviously, this cannot be done by a government in power that is backed by a political party or by any movement or force. It has not happened in 32 years of the Fourth Republic, and it will certainly not happen in the next 32 years, so far as the country is governed by a political party.
Now, time to hear from you, the electorate. A voter's voice today is coming from the Kwame Nkrumah circle.
About to know the motto former President John Dramani Mahama on a motto because on an abroad, no yama debate and yama yet in them a CCI. Now, in yama bin idea, or by like Doomso no, or call Parliament ko accepted there. On an abroad, don't Doomso no, then AC. No, or find ways to resolve Doomso. On it, they say, Yenya, our friend, then, Jesu and the moon, Yama sounds super be one. Can Yama in Jinsem Dama? Them are Benuam and Yama Aya Basai.
Make a can ban a Kametwa can. Nakana money, dear, many of my dress and a toa baffy. I said, O many more Disca, maybe because of the Shamema. Masola Baba Toaba. And then any man called Wyatt and a bay, and then go for bay, no cry a sound. Now, Yakwasa or money. Economy no aye basa baby or promising that ko bobe ma nyama ye fine e chi onu mo ba ya nyama ye basa e twenya wumpa ontwa ehun nta me mo jezi wo John Dramani Mahama no mu nta ono na moto ma ba ma no mo bom pa so ama ndo on win number pa no nyama onye ye man na bibia basa ye nya sika ye nya hwe ne be ne 1008 adan ye kwose wo mani nti bi pa mo cho afi mi de kana ba mi mento aba mi ye fu MPP ni eso afi mi mento aba
Jem Mama na meto ama no Jem oh ado oya good leader oya good leader.
This has been your election brief from your election headquarters here in Accra. We have more political stories on our website, myjoyonline.com. My name is Carlos Kaloni. Thank you so much for watching. Good afternoon.